Alright everyone, welcome to Wednesday's video. We're talking financials today. Not done it in a while, don't know if I've ever actually done it on Celtic AM. A proper deep dive into what's going on financially at Celtic. Spoiler, Celtic have a lot of money, you may or may not know that, but just how much money do we have, where is it all coming from, and what does it mean? Those are the kind of questions we're going to be looking at today. And to do so, I will be seeking the help of the legends at Swiss Ramble, who recently posted, a thread on a certain social media site that you'll probably know, and also an article on their website explaining our financial figures up until the summer. Now, they do a hell of a lot of good work, Swiss Ramble. I've leaned on them in the past, so I definitely check them out. They are at Swiss Ramble on that certain social media platform. They also have a Substack with an article explaining Celtic's figures for last season and basically everything that I'm using on this video. So I should definitely, to keep myself right, let you all know about Swiss Ramble. Check them out. There's a description to that article in the link, so definitely check them out. They do some great work, as I say. I'll be using some of their graphics for this video as well. So I know some of you like to listen to me as a podcast. Numbers are growing great. If you've not checked it out, do that. This may be one that you want to watch rather than listen, but if you are out and about and don't have YouTube as an option right now, I will do my best to talk you through all of the graphics that will be displayed to viewers here. So a bit of a challenge for me as well to get all of this down and making sense. So yeah, first of all, what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with the annual results that Celtic released, you may remember, in mid-September. These were for the year ended 30th of June 2024, so last season. We did mention these at the time, I'm sure we did on the channel. The key takeaway here was that we had £77.2 million in the bank. Revenue had increased by 3.9% to 124.6 million. If you're anything like me, like all of these numbers just become a bit of a blur after a period of time. You just struggle to actually comprehend what's going on. Basically, these figures were extremely good, but we're going to go into them in more depth, where the money came from, and I'm going to try and explain all of that, and hopefully we all leave this video with a better understanding. So yeah, we made a £17.8 million pre-tax profit. That's clearly very good news, although that was down from the over £40 million profit we made the year previous. Now, Swiss Ramble explains that this is down to a few things, mainly one-off things that occurred. Now, we received a £10 million business interruption insurance claim that I believe was due to COVID, but we got that a few years later. I think we maybe got a yearly payment for a few years. So we got that in 2023. We also get £3.5 million for Ange Postecoglou leaving to Tottenham Hotspur in 2023. So we didn't get that in 2024, so that's why our profit is down a little bit. Player sales are also down for last year's results. Bit of a technicality, I think Jota, even though Jota left before last season, I think his figures were included in the previous year's account. So still some pretty great figures. For example, revenue was up from 120 million in 2023, which is a pretty amazing number, but it went up to 125 million in this year's results. That's the highest in Celtic's history. Not just that, it's the highest for any Scottish club in history. So we're making more money than we ever have before. We're making more money than any Scottish club has ever made before. Okay, graphic one from Swiss Ramble, and this is to do with the profit that we made in both years. So as I say, £40 million profit made, that's the left-hand side, the blue bar, that's for last year, and on the right-hand side, you've got the profit of just under £18 million that we made this year. And just a wee bit of an explainer about the various parts of the club, I guess, that were either up or down, either making a profit or a loss. Broadcasting money was up by £5.2 million. That's, I assume, down to us doing a little bit better in the Champions League last year, actually winning a match. For example, commercial was also up. Matchday revenue was down. I believe that's due to us having just the one home pre-season friendly last season, which you may remember was James Forrest's testimonial. Wages up this year, £4.7 million. We did hand out a number of new contracts when Brendan Rodgers came into the club. But it compares, as much as our profit, as I say, is down a bit from the previous year. When you compare it to the other clubs in Scotland, it is still mightily impressive. Only Aberdeen and Hearts made a profit other than ourselves. So, yeah, not too many clubs in Scotland making a profit. Some club making a hell of a loss there. So, yeah, you may have noticed that. We've made a profit in 8 of the last 9 years. The COVID season being the only one where we made a loss. And I think it's fair to say that was a bit of a mitigating factor. And in terms of our revenue trends, Swiss Ramble say Celtic have managed to grow their revenue by £41 million since before the pandemic, up from £83 million in 2018-19 to £125 million. In fact, they have set a new club record in each of the last 2 seasons with decent growth in all 3 revenue streams. The expectation is that Celtic's revenue will further increase this season thanks to the uplift in the Champions League TV deal. So a club record in revenue for each of the past 2 seasons, and I reckon we're going to make it 3 in a row for this season's results, given that we've sold Matt O'Reilly for a club record fee and we've entered this new Champions League with the increased riches. Not just that, but we're actually doing quite well. We've already won 2 matches and would certainly hope for a few more wins as we go forward. So revenue over the past decade in comparison to Rangers. I know we don't always like to talk about Rangers, but I think it is interesting just to see where how we stack up against them and have done over the past decade. And it's interesting because I think the revenue made by each club in comparison to each other almost kind of reflects how things were going on the pitch, which I think is quite interesting that they're very similar. So we were miles ahead of them when they were promoted to the Premiership for the first time in 2016 and grew further clearly when Brendan Rodgers came into the club, etc. Were making like way more, like, I don't know, 4 times as much, 3-4 times as much as them in 2018. 3 times as much as them in 2018 it was. They made 33 million, we made 102. And then the gap clearly closed and it got to the point in 2022 after their run to the Europa League final where they were making £87 million and we were only making 88. So it was pretty much dead on. And then since then, we've just gone ahead of them again over the past couple of years. Ange Postecoglou coming into the club, we've asserted their dominance at the top. Brendan Rodgers continuing that, and we're now at a point where, for these results, we made 125 million, and they made 88 million for the same period. So clearly, in a bit of a different world to them, just like we were about 5 or 6 years ago, which is great to see. And in terms of another comparison, bit of a strange comparison to begin with, but it's with Southampton. And the reason Swiss Ramble have compared this to Southampton is they are the club who finished 20th in the 2023 Premier League season. So the bottom club, the worst club, some would say, in the Premier League. And I think it's interesting just to see, even though Southampton are clearly nowhere near the size of club we are, I mean, we make far more than them in match day money and clearly in Europe because they're not in Europe, and commercial deals, etc. But you got the TV deal that they have, £108 million they got that season. We got £4 million from the Scottish Premiership. And it just shows what could be possible if we ever played in the English Premier League, or even just any league that gave us slightly more than £4 million a season for TV. By the way, this is Scottish Premiership's annual TV money compared to other leagues in Europe. And you start to see what Celtic are up against. So, yeah, Premier League, way ahead. more money than any other league. I mean, almost double the amount of La Liga, which I think is a bit of a shame. Almost triple the amount of the Bundesliga, which is just ridiculous. But obviously, in terms of Celtic and Scottish football, we're not really competing against those top, 4 or 5 leagues. But even like the Extra Klasa, which is Poland's league, or the Pro League, which is Belgium, just Scottish football just miles away. And again, I think that goes back to us underselling ourselves with regards to the TV deal we got. At least we're not roped in for too long with Sky. Is it not like 2029 or something like that? Oh dear. Yeah, difficult for Celtic. But given that low domestic fee, the UEFA Champions League obviously becomes the main attraction, and that's where we can earn the big money. And it's not too difficult to work out which seasons we had Champions League football. The 3 there, the first one and the last 2 are clearly when we had Champions League football. This season was actually the final year of automatic qualification for the UEFA Champions League. So even if we win the Premiership this season, we'll have to go through qualifying to make it to the league phase for next season. I believe it's just 1 round of qualifying, so it's not like way back to the days when we had, I think, 4 rounds to navigate at the worst point. It would just be 1 qualifying round, and Scottish teams are having a good year in Europe this year, so it may not be too long before we get that automatic place back. But Champions League just vital for Celtic, even more than previously, I think, because there's so much money in offer now. Like, there really is a dramatic amount of money. I'd need to look at it all again, but I think last season I looked at the new Champions League format and the money it could potentially bring in, and it could be something like £50 million it's worth to Celtic, and that might have been me before I even properly looked at us getting some big results that we obviously have so far. So it's just like a complete game changer to Celtic when you have Champions League football, and just, you know, brings in so much more money and broadcasting revenue. So the figures have us with £77 million in the bank. And you look back at just 2021 when we had 19 million. And I know COVID is a big factor there, clearly. And the club would have lost a fair bit. That it was kind of a season and a half, wasn't it, with COVID? A season and a quarter, the end of the 2019-20 season. And then the whole dire 2021 season that we never want to talk about. But I think what you would say is that the club have reacted very well to the pandemic and that season, both on and off the park. Clearly on the pitch, I think the reaction to that season has been immense. And Ange Postecoglou had a big part to do with that. I think he was amazing for the club. And Brendan Rodgers, who has been amazing for the club now in 2 different spells, is just continuing that. But off the pitch as well, you know, Celtic were in a good place prior to the pandemic, and if we hadn't have been, it may have been more challenging for us. But there can't be too many other clubs around that have reacted so well to what was like an incredibly difficult situation for, well, everyone, but also, you know, especially businesses and football clubs who couldn't get fans in. And the Celtic support deserve so much credit for this as well, because the backing we give the club in terms of season tickets that year when we didn't even get to see any matches, and obviously since then virtually every home match is sold out, and the money that Stevie puts into merchandise is clearly propping the club up well, and probably a big part. I'm surprised I've not got a wee column for Stevie's money that he puts in, because that must be in the millions. Very rich man, Stevie. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, we have a lot of money in the bank, £77 million to be precise. For context, the next highest cash balance in Scotland is Hearts with £5.6 million. But I guess the question we always have as supporters is, do we have too much money in the bank? And are the club hoarding cash? Are they being a bit too conservative in terms of keeping too much money? We know that, and I think the club have said this publicly. Peter Lawley said this publicly, that the club do want to make sure there's money there for when the day comes that we're not guaranteed UEFA Champions League football. So there's not this dramatic drop off that we saw in the past. And you know, some people might look at it as being really good business. I guess business people would potentially do that. I think as football fans, we look at it as being quite a kind of negative attitude, and rather than keeping money for a rainy day, why not try and prevent that rainy day from coming by making sure that you keep pushing yourselves and be ambitious and just get to the Champions League every season, and then you won't have to worry about never being there. Obviously, we're never going to play in the Champions League every single season for the rest of our history, but why isn't it the aim just every season just to get to the Champions League rather than kind of waiting for the day when we don't and having that money there to help us that day? So yeah, it's an interesting one. There was an interesting graphic shared here by Swiss Ramble, and this is the money held in the bank, so the cash balance, and only 3 English sides have a greater cash balance than ourselves. Tottenham Hotspur with an obscene amount in the bank, Chelsea and Manchester City. So and I'm assuming those 3 clubs and Man United below us would have far greater revenue than ourselves, given the money down south, and the fact those are pretty big clubs as well. Yeah, it does make you think that potentially Celtic are, hoarding too much cash. Yeah, for me, and I think most fans, you just want to see the club continuing to push forward and really back Brendan Rodgers, because it feels to me that this is like the perfect opportunity for Celtic to really push forward and just let's see how good we can become in the European stage. Obviously a long way to go this season, we've not achieved anything yet, but certainly the signs have been very positive. It seems for the first time in a number of years like we have a team that can go and get results at the top level of European competition. Obviously not against every team, but certainly a team like Leipzig, far more money than us, far higher wage bill than us, and the way we played that night and beat them has just filled everyone with so much confidence. We've got a really engaged fan base right now. We've got a really top playing squad. So many amazing players who, well, a lot of them will probably move on for big money in the coming years. And we've got I think, an elite level manager as well. So, and all of that money, it just seems like the perfect time to really push on. And as I say, let's see how good we can become, and just really want those at the club to keep showing ambition rather than being conservative in any way. I think, I can't remember who it was that said that. It might even have been Ange in his book, but he said that the minute you stop moving forward, you're moving backwards in this game. And I think that sums up how I feel. It's been an amazing time to support Celtic, and it's shown no signs of stopping anytime soon. All this glory, all of these trophies, and I think it's just that European progress we want to see now. We're seeing signs of that. Imagine if we keep improving on the European stage, keep spending the kind of money we did on Arnie Engels in the summer, Austin Trusty, Adam Ida obviously spent big money on him. Keep improving the squad. Players are going to leave, other players will come in. And yeah, I think it's really exciting to see where we can go. But certainly off the pitch, the club is in a fabulous place. No one comes close to us domestically. And again, that shows no signs of slowing up anytime soon. I guess the final word of caution would be things can change very quickly. And I guess like in 2018 or 2019 or whatever, it didn't look like anyone was going to come close to us anytime soon. And they did pretty quickly. So things can change, but I think as long as those at the club keep showing ambition, like they did in the summer, come the end of the window, as long as we keep Brendan Rodgers happy, I think things are very good. Is that a positive way to end, everyone? I'm sure you'll let me know your thoughts in today's video anyway. I'm going to head off for now, back tomorrow.